A very good, Thursday afternoon to everyone. And I have the pleasure of being joined by, dare I say, my former coach for a couple of years. International master, man of mystery and raconteur. It's Michael Basman. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Yeah, well, it seemed longer than 2 years to me.
Just good afternoon to Martin, Merry Hat Man. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll cover a few things today. So what have you been up to, Mike?
Well, it's been lockdown for a while, and therefore I've managed to have a rest from my pupils, which is got some advantages because you often can't teach much to a class of 20 kids. But I've been giving lessons by my mobile phone. I could show you it. It's a very good model, a Nokia, where you don't have internet or smartphone. You just have what a mobile phone has got to have, which is a voice. And then I just give lessons by phone because the video is your chess set. And I'm actually getting a better quality players coming out of that, because if you're doing one-to-one tuition, you can get down and dirty with the pupils. And I think that's why one of the reasons Blair Connell, for example, is such an outstanding player, is because he did have one-to-one lessons with me for a considerable period of time.
Well, quite remarkably, whenever I mention you, and you are very well known, even nowadays, to chess players, they always say to me, and I mean very good chess players, like title players, they'll say to me, "Oh, he must have taught you the Grob, etc., etc." And that couldn't be further from the truth, is it?
Yes, I don't teach the Grob to people. Possibly they're not ready for it, and maybe if I give them the classical theories, which I would have learnt, amazingly enough, from the American authors, Reinfeldt, Chernev's logical chess move by move. These explained it all very well, very readable, those books, and I recommend them and I still use them. But of course they didn't have a very good press in England, because we tend to look down on anything that comes from America. And don't forget, at the time when I was playing chess, or starting chess, that's the 60s, America was not the dominant force in chess. It was Russia. So we looked to Russia, but of course all the Russian books would have been quite heavy and in a different language. But the American books, the American teaching books, were and still are incredible. So that's had my foundation of classical chess, and therefore if I'm teaching chess, I will tend to look to teach it that way. And my later aberrations, well, they're personal quirks.
So what you're saying is you have a total respect. The only way that you were ever able to play these, what they're considered by some to be somewhat outlandish openings, can I say? Is that unfair? Is the fact that you did have a true understanding about, counteracting in the centre later in the game. It wasn't as if you just decided to start doing these things for no reason whatsoever.
No, I would have decided to do them because, like at Hastings, this Canadian guy came along and said, well, he wrote an article after Hastings, and he said Mike Basman is too lazy to learn any proper openings and too smart to let anyone play them against him. And that was what I kind of began after I came back from Armenia. I had started to invent some systems of my own, and they were quite good. They still are good, but it gradually became more deviant as I went to the edges of the board, around about 78, 79. So 1973, I tied first in the British Championship, using some of my odd inventions. But they became odder. But you can see why. Studying books became very second-hand. Playing other people's openings became very second-hand. And therefore, trying to get a buzz of realism, I started to look at my own ideas.
So I think it'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention the fact that you were very much the pioneer of the Grob opening, which is one G4.
Yeah, the pioneer is Henri Grob, of course, and it's a great name for an opening. Maybe that's just an ordinary name for a Swiss guy, but for us, just the word Grob is fantastic. So he was the pioneer, but I guess I might have laid some other ideas down and beat quite a few grandmasters with it. So, and I reckon it and the other related systems have a great future, which we're seeing when we kind of look at computer chess, what the computers are coming up with, and I think some of them play a lot on the edge of the board.
I think let me just give a shout out to a couple of people joining us today. Flash Jevam, that is very much in the pipeline, maybe not today. The Crafty Cockney, Pluquois, Mary Hatman. And Mary Hatman's saying, Martin, lovely guy, he's saying he still prizes his copy of The Killer Grob.
Who is this?
This is Martin in our chat, Mary Hatman. So you can see, I appreciate that it's a technological masterpiece here. We've got many screens open so we can see some of the people. And you've been described very fairly so by Pluquois as a legend. And I totally concur.
Pluquois?
That's his username on there. These are not actual people's names, Mike. These are their nom de plume, shall we say? That these are the Twitch handles, I believe is the phrase.
Right.
But so what appealed to you about? What was your process behind the idea of the of the Grob 1G, or your love of 1G4? What was your thought process behind using it?
I think, again, you have to go back to the 70s. I had invented a few openings, and I was sort of working with Tony Miles, but not much. And we used to play 1B6, and so white plays say E4, yeah, and black plays B6, yeah, which is of course a little known opening called Owen's Defense, and I played that, and of course when you used to play openings like that, you would get the feeling that the whole tournament hall was laughing at you when you made such moves. So you had to overcome that sort of emotional pressure. But we also had a technical problem, me and Tony Miles, that we didn't get enough space by playing B6. And we might find, let's just make a few moves that I can explain. D4, yeah?
Sorry.
Yes, sir. D4, maybe E6, no, Bishop B7, yeah? Bishop D3, for example.
But of course, can we just explain to people the thought process is that you want to pressure the centre from a distance, I imagine.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh yeah, actually you're...
At which point did the pupil become the master, I asked myself. Well, I think we're seeing a live transition right now.
That's amazing. Could you explain my openings more clearly? Okay, so yes, as Blair points out, we are threatening a pawn at E4. But if we carry on a little bit, maybe white plays bishop dolly 3, and then black plays egg 6, egg 6. Because as you know, B, C, D, E, G, that's all the E sounds.
Absolutely. I said that once as well. Do you prefer E4 or D4? And I couldn't even understand the answer. Not to you, obviously. Yeah. That would be the most ridiculous question ever, wouldn't it?
So bunny, cat, dolly, egg, and girly. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are your the other ones, which are A, and
F, maybe.
F is right? Okay, and H. These are distinct sounds.
I don't know if you know, but obviously H in this office is always known as Harry, I'm afraid.
Harry. Well, Harry doesn't need a name. He can be anonymous. We're not talking about Harry now after what he's done to the monarchy. Trashed the monarchy, gone. Well, anyway, let's not get started.
Enough of that, indeed.
But, we were carrying on. What move are we on?
We're on move 4, white to play.
Knight F3. Say knight F6, yeah. Queen E2, yeah. C5, C3, yeah. Knight C6. Maybe not.
Well, no, but you're just giving a principled idea. You're not giving it absolutely move by move, is the idea.
Yeah, castles for white, yeah. And bishop E7, say. Possible. E5, yeah. Knight D5. Maybe here A3. So we're a little bit worried about the black knight on dolly 5 getting kicked by the pawn coming up to C4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, this opening is definitely playable. I mean, I don't necessarily give it up for the right reasons. It's just because, for example, you play here. No, you could play that. Okay. No, let's say White plays A3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on the board.
And Black goes Queen C7 rather carelessly. Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of move I'd make. Now, Blair, let's see if you remember any of your skills that I taught you. How can Y win a piece in this position?
Well, listening to people is not necessarily one of my fortes, but where I've always listened to you, sir, and I believe that you did give me a clue previously by is it cat 4?
Cat 4, yeah, cat 4 traps the knight. Exactly.
Because obviously, as we can see here, the knight has no longer any squares.
No
so Daisy can't go to e6, but the queen's coming to c7. It was just an example you gave about the problems.
But this is just the start of an ordinary Basman game, because they would say Basman doesn't start playing until he's lost something. Yeah. So lots of my games would start like this. Then I got tired of maybe being a piece down after 10 moves.
You like to give your opponents a bit of a head start, is that right? Before you sort of start kicking into gear against them.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm so successful with the Grob, because you've got a lost position from move 1.
Well, I mean, the computers may say it's no good, but we've got a strong opinion that practical chess is a human game, isn't it? And it's played by people, and also there are a lot of people out there who love the sidelines, and they don't have the time to spend, and they don't have the inclination to spend days studying the Berlin defense, for example. I mean, it honestly, it sounds like a fate worse than death to me, to be honest with you, Mike. It would remove all my personal enjoyment out of the game if I had to do that.
But I guess you're right, Blair. We've got to big this up, because it's not a very good advertising ploy to say, play this over. I
think there's many people out there who really appreciate being able to do something different, and if they understand the plans that they're trying to achieve, then they will probably get in many strong positions, because people are unfamiliar with these openings, or certainly less familiar with them. The problem is, by bigging them up, we're now going to make them more familiar with them, and they'll know what to do against them. But we won't give any secrets away, or you won't give any secrets away.
We're not afraid of adversity. So that's the whole principle. I could win by playing the French defence, because I had a winning line in it. But it took too long. It was boring.
you wanted a bit more entertainment out of these things.
Exactly.
Is that right?
So
But if we go back to the evolution you were saying was that you weren't happy with you were okay with the concepts of the opening, but you weren't happy with the lack of space that you got to some degree.
So that was kind of the genesis of the St. George, because the St. George begins Black plays x6, then White goes Dolly 4, and now Black fools White because he's expecting a French, and then you play the insulting. If the people probably don't know what the French is.
I imagine they do, but it's always nice just to show in pictorial representation what's happening.
Yeah, that's the French. Dolly 5 is the French. Yeah, okay. So that's the normal, right? But I played A6, and people didn't like that move, even though those sorts of moves are quite common in chess. But there's a disconnect between what people do and what they say. Yeah, like they all say they'll vote Labour, and then they go off and vote Conservative. Yeah. So here, these sorts of moves like A6 and playing on the edges are quite common in chess. I mean, have you heard of the Najdorf variation?
I have just about heard of it.
Let's have a look at the Najdorf.
No, don't put me on the spot on these things, yeah?
You must know the Najdorf.
Well, I think I might. Well, I might know it because of MVL's played it quite unsuccessfully recently.
Yeah, okay, let's look at the Najdorf.
So, obviously, it's an open to sin, is that right?
Something like this, and then he takes,
and then
knight f6, and then knight c3. And doesn't Black play a6 here?
Absolutely right, I believe.
Isn't it? It doesn't develop a piece, doesn't put a pawn in the centre. Is that classic? But no, they happily play it because Miguel Najdorf invented it, and he wiped everybody out with it.
Well, as we know, this is still currently played. I mean, MVL just simply won't give this up.
Right, it's a very logical move. So the St. George also is perfectly logical. Let's go back to the St. George. A6. And let's just make a few moves. White plays. Oh, actually, some of them suicidally used to play c4. Let's look at the suicide variation. Then black plays b5, white takes, black takes, white takes, and then white's a pawn up. But that's the only joy. He gets bishop b7. I forget what black does here. Maybe white goes bishop d3. Yeah.
That's fine, of course. But that bishop might come under pressure anyway on b5. Could have gone knight c3.
I think now we play f5, which probably loses by force in the Owens variation, but it's much stronger here because you've got your whole queen side developed, haven't you?
So is e takes f5 an issue here? Is this getting a bit messy, or
E takes f5 is not a problem, I think. Bishop takes g2. I'm not sure if anybody's ever.
Well,
yeah. Now queen h5 check. This is not a problem. I can assure you. What would you play here?
Well,
I'm telling you, it's not a problem until I go. Okay. You're not familiar with this.
I'm not. I don't know. There's this.
Well,
can we go king e7? I don't know.
Yeah, then queen g5 check wins bishop.
I'm not very good with tactics, by the way. I'm more positional player.
Don't worry, just play,
So I'll have to
play
go
the only possible
I'll have to
move.
go g6 then.
And then white takes. Okay, now you've only got one possible move again for black.
Knight f6.
No, g7 check wins.
Oh, of course, wins the rook. I told you I'm not very good at these tactics.
Well, I mean, it looks apparently, at first sight, this is a scary variation for black.
Well, this looks to me like bishop g7. Is that the move?
Bishop g7.
I only noticed that because I looked at the chat, and players who are far stronger than me are telling me.
Okay.
That's a good thing about having people watching. They can actually tell you the answer.
You're right. So now white takes discovered check, maybe. Yeah. Black goes king f8. White can take the knight, yeah, but he doesn't necessarily. But you see, the problem is he's losing the rook. Now, in what's called the Owens variation, the whole of the queen side is covered by pawns. But here you've got a rook on a8, haven't you? You can swing into the defence. And if white tries to castle the queen side,
it's already exposed. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this variation is perfectly okay for black. Nothing to worry about. Yeah?
So I'm just going to move the microphone just a little bit so I can actually. The reason I'm doing that is because I need to actually see the I need to see the chat because they're telling me what the right answers are. And thank you to Plucroft for that.
Right. Okay.
I would have failed miserably otherwise. I can tell you. As you can tell, I was trying to lose on the spot with king e7. So.
Yeah, but Blair, understand, I'm not here to humiliate you. The reason I'm asking you these questions is, for me, the most important thing is your first reactions to a position, what you come up with, what you think of. Because quite often my pupils, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, they come up with these amazing ideas because they don't know anything. So don't worry about the fact you know nothing.
I will not worry about it. And let me assure you, it's not an issue for you humiliating me, but I don't need much help with that normally. I agree. It's like more than capable of doing it on my own, but you're welcome to join the party, sir.
Okay, so let's go back to our beginnings of A6. So let's look at that's the C4 line, which is good for black. Tony Mars was interested in playing that.
Can you tell us any history behind? I think many people who have any sort of knowledge of chess history will be somewhat aware, or maybe they're not, of the famous Karpov-Mars game. Can you shed any light on that, which people may not know about?
Yeah, that was a total outrage by the British team. Yeah.
Why was that?
Why?
I don't know. It was like,
well, Tony, he'd run out of options against Karpov and got flattened by him so many times that he came up with this A6 move, and he beat Karpov pretty well. He never actually, I think, repeated it again, which is surprising because it's such a good opening. But it is what the British team did afterwards, because obviously this had been my opening and I had named it E6, A6, B5. So let's say white plays knight F3 here, yeah?
Absolutely. Oops, excuse me. Let's regroup.
And now black plays b5. So the opening is, white goes, say, bishop d3. Black maybe goes c5, c3, bishop b7, possibly castles. Knight f6.
Am I right in saying that you had a good victory over Keith Arkle in this line?
Yeah, but he was very young and small then, yeah?
Okay.
So,
Well, he's still a grandmaster now, isn't he?
well, he was, but then he was just, he was just starting out. So I wouldn't like to say I was playing the real Keith Arkle. He never repeated that variation again to me. So he learned quickly. Same with Hebden. They learned not to play. But you can see if white now goes pawn to e5, yeah.
Yeah.
Then the knight can come to dolly 5, and then you've got the knight is more secure because of the black pawn at b5.
So then, if people can remember, whether they're not just joining us, before we had a line showing Owen's defence where the black pawn wasn't on b5, it was back on b6.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the pawn on b5 now does a very nice job of preventing white very readily or easily kicking the knight or putting pressure on this knight on d5.
Yes, so you're somewhat behind in development, but on the other hand, you've got some strategic squares. So anyway, after Miles had won with this tournament, the British team did not, without consulting me, because I wasn't there, decided they were going to name the opening. And they were thinking of things like calling it the Birmingham defence. I mean, really? Or the Bullring defence, because it was named after Miles. He comes from Birmingham. And anyway, I was so annoyed about that I had to think of my own name, which is the St George's defence.
But that has actually stuck, hasn't it?
We finally won the battle. No thanks to the British team, yeah, who kind of rather sardonically said, well, Mike Basman's won a few games with this in weekend tournaments.
Ooh, that's a slight, isn't it?
Yeah, pulling rank.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've spoken to Keith Arkle at length about this, and he assures me that these weekend tournaments takes a hell of a lot of winning. So it's a little bit insulting, I've got to say.
Yeah, but at that time, of course, the British team was really going up the rankings with those 7 grandmasters. They were almost hitting the top spot, because you remember back in 1953.
No, sorry.
No, but anyway.
I assume that was rhetorical.
Well, okay. So back in 1953, there's this famous grandmaster, I think, Yefim Bobolibov. That's if he was still alive then. So he was somebody who played Alekhine for the World Championship, and he sort of turns around to his friends and saying, "What's wrong with me? I'm playing like an Englishman." So the Brits were just useless at chess in my day. We were hopeless. But suddenly we got all these world beaters. We started with Tony Miles and Ray Keane, and then we go on to others, Keane, Steen, Spielman. We even get a world champion candidate, which is Nigel Short. And then it kind of evaporates with, people like Blair Connell. were given the baton in 1988, but did they take it on?
Well, that was a drop baton, wasn't it? Let's be frank about that.
Yeah, so there was me. Then I started out my chess challenge. I got 50,000 kids playing chess, and then Gary Kasparov comes along and complains, "What's wrong with British chess? They haven't, a few years ago." Do you remember what he said?
I don't actually.
Well, what he said was, "What's wrong with British chess? They haven't got any masters below the age of 30 or something, because other countries have got 12-year-old grandmasters like Pragananda or something like that. But we've got people like Mike Basman running this tournament for kids. So as people, ordinary people, people who come from Guildford and go to state schools, could get a chance to play our wonderful game instead of just being elitist and having this Oxford-Cambridge dominance." So, it's not my problem that we didn't produce any grandmasters in the 1990s or the 2000s. That wasn't my plan. If you want grandmasters, English Chess Federation, create them yourself.
And so I understand that talking about creating the next generation of players, you've got some ideas that you might want to share with us.
Oh yeah, I did run the UK Chess International for 1 year for secondary schools, and Amit Garza won it, and he, the top prize was £2,000. I just ran it for 1 year in 2004. Now I think there could be a demand for that sort of tournament in the secondary schools. I mean, Sarah Hegarty has nobly taken on the chess challenge, doing a very good job with it. But maybe now I've got more free time because, I lost the tournament in suspicious circumstances. We're not going to go into that, I guess.
No, you're welcome to speak about it should you wish, but it's up to you.
I shouldn't think the people listening, they're probably chess nerds, and they're not going to be interested in the minutiae of our tax system and why it wastes people's time. Creative people such as myself, would rather pay more tax but have less paperwork. This was the only statement I was making. A fairly reasonable one, but I didn't make the statement very well. That's why I lost the tournament. But as I say, that tournament is gone, and it's been run by Sarah Hegarty very ably. But let's have something for teenagers to play chess, because chess in schools, in secondary schools, does not exist. I mean, it wasn't great in England, but we did have 1,000 schools in the Times tournament. And when I played chess, say when I started chess in the London Juniors, 1959, I think we had 200 people just playing in the under-14s. There was a massive amount of interest in chess by teenagers. And I think that all that disappeared when they abolished the grammar schools. If they'd have kept the grammar schools, then I think chess would have survived and flourished. But then it went down to about 100 secondary schools playing chess. And quite a lot of the keenest ones were the private schools. So unfortunately chess became an elitist game. It became an elitist game due to the fact that people were trying to get rid of the elite by abolishing the grammar schools. It kind of had the reverse effect, certainly if you look at it from the chess point of view. But I think now, because we've had a lockdown, people have seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, a lot of teenagers would be fascinated by chess, and I think we should cater for the secondary schools, but let's have everybody in the country being able to play chess. There's intelligence everywhere. You don't just have to limit it to some people.
So you're absolutely promoting, as I believe you always have done, inclusivity, not exclusivity.
Yes, I think, even if you're a bad chess player, you still learn an enormous lot by playing chess. It's such a wonderful game, wonderful history. And I can't see why, everybody should not enjoy playing chess. So yes, I'm not the sort of person who thinks that the only sort of chess that's important is Grandmaster chess. And I guess Bobby Fischer, even though he was a good guy, unfortunately he would say, I don't want to play with weakies.
And I think we've just got to go on the chat. Ozzy, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Blazer, as well. Everyone is joining us. He's saying that East Lancashire School's chess ended in 1983. So that's a bit of knowledge there. So right. Maybe it goes to show exactly what you're talking about, Mike.
Yes, I'm afraid you'll barely find a school in England with a chess club. Or, actually, when I was at Surbiton County Grammar School, which wasn't really a grammar school, but we just claimed it was, we had a chess club, and often there was only 5 people in it, but all those 5 got to play in the British Championship. Wow. And one of them became a master. So, a run-down little secondary school in England could produce that number of good players. But you see, that this would not happen in an average secondary school nowadays in England, and that's a pity.
Now, I understand as well that am I right in saying that you did this once before in 2004, is that correct?
I did, yes.
And I believe that you did a bit of an advertising campaign for it.
Oh, yes, the posters were sensational, yes, in fact, and I didn't realise what effect they would have, which is quite often I do things which I think are quite normal, and then you get a strange reaction. So we had a really handsome young chess player, really strong one, grade 200. He gave up chess, unfortunately. Named was Jonathan Lapage. So I stuck him on this massive poster, yeah, and and it was in blue, yeah. Blue, blue for boys, yeah. so there was this poster of him looking, a bit like Elvis, not quite the hair, but certainly, the lips and the expression, yeah, contempt, and we had the slogan: "It's cool, it's deadly, it's chess. Who's the boss?" Yeah, and that was so. We had two posters. The other poster I had was. One of my teachers, Natalie Gibbs, and she was actually showing a bare arm in that poster, and the slogan was, "It's cool, it's sexy, it's chess. Make your move." Anyway, there was total outrage in the schools who used it, for diversity training examples, of this is just sexist stereotyping, yeah? Well, maybe. But on the other hand, I would say I wouldn't necessarily call it stereotyping. I think even today, you will often see, I don't want to be outrageous, but you often see girls wearing makeup.
No.
Yes.
Pass me by.
You haven't noticed it. Well, and boys don't wear dresses. So anyway, this was quite an interesting, stunning poster because the kids loved it.
So basically, what you're saying is that you've waited 17 years for the fallout to settle, and now you're back.
Well, I didn't actually drop the tournament because actually the tournament was very successful. In the very first year, we got 300 schools. So, despite the outrage from various head teachers, which was, synthetic and cosmetic, it didn't matter. The kids loved it, and the tournament was very successful. But it was too much work because I was running the chess challenge for 50,000, maybe 70,000 kids, and this was on top. So I dropped it. But now I think it's time to revive this, and we've still got that demand. That we need the teenagers to have something to go to, and then this is a sort of a ladder to success because we had an international tournament at the end of it.
So it's safe to say you're not finished yet with the promoting chess in schools and trying to get it as big as you can get it, maybe, or?
I think you need to go on until you drop, and it's up to you not to drop if you can. We don't know the limits to longevity. At the moment, they say you're going to die at 70 years, but does that really have to be the case? I mean, have you written yourself off, Blair?
Not quite just yet. I haven't, but
Good,
I might need to make some lifestyle changes just to keep up the good fight. But
Okay,
we'll see about that.
So I could appoint you to oversee this project in the schools.
You could absolutely, I'll
can
totally happily
yeah.
promote it for you to the best of my ability. And if we can just go back, just if I may, circle back round to your rise as a fantastic chess player, and I understand that it was the world champion Botvinnik who once described you as one of the finest talents in Britain.
Yes, that was quite amusing. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if we've got time to show the actual game, and maybe we could. Do you want to do it quickly? Maybe.
Yeah, let's look at the game.
It's really fascinating for those. I mean, you can look at it out there. If we go back to, and this was played, I believe, dare I say, all the way back in. I believe it says in front of us 1966. That's a famous year for England in general, I guess.
66, 67, yes, and so 66, yes. So it was probably 67 because it's over the new year.
So we're talking about the Hastings, the fantastic, and one of the longest running tournaments, I believe, in the world, the Hastings Premier, the Hastings Congress.
Yes, and that, so it's a big deal to be invited because there were no international opportunities in chess at that time. You just had Hastings. That's why English players, well, they couldn't get titles because there were no tournaments to go into, and you couldn't go into an international tournament if you didn't have a title. So most countries would run their own international tournaments, but not usually England, because England was quite amateurish at the time. They used to say England could beat any country on 1,000 boards, yeah, and lose to any on 10 boards. So,
Right.
So that's got a lot to be said for English amateurishness, but then again, we therefore didn't have many chances. So I was invited to Hastings along with, there were this brilliant generation of players, which was Keane, Hartston, there was myself, and I think we also had Penrose, who was the top player and was really Grandmaster standard, but he didn't play that much. So we all played at Hastings. I was meant to come bottom with 2 points because Leonard Marden, who is still around, and he sort of said where we would all end up, and he did say I would get just 2 points. But then it looked like he was correct, because after the first 3 rounds I only had half a point out of 3, yeah. Anyway, after a little bit of crying in the bath, I then sort of put myself together, because it was really embarrassing playing at Hastings, because you got all these big demonstration boards, you're sitting up against the strongest players in the world, the Grandmasters. You're a virtual beginner, and then of course you've got all the spectators watching you. So, this is sort of instant humiliation. Everyone can see what you're doing. And so finally I had to dig in and start thinking a bit. And then I amazingly won 3 games, and so I was getting close to the top, and then I had a match against Botvinnik. And round about this time, so I'm playing Botvinnik, and I'm not reckoning my chances. But
and was Botvinnik obviously as world champion? And I really should know when he was world champion.
But he lost his title in '63. But
okay.
These Soviet players, they were gods to us.
Absolutely.
Not now, because the world has opened up and everybody's strong. But then, we just thought, they were fantastic, which I believe they were. They were great players. And so we didn't think we had a chance against them. But surprisingly, Hartston drew, I think, in the first round to Botvinnik. And Botvinnik's comments on this was, Hartston is a very pleasant young man. Perhaps that was why I couldn't beat him in the first round. And then, amazing enough, around about the middle of the tournament, Botvinnik actually loses to Keane, which hasn't had much publicity, but he lost to Keane. And Botvinnik was furious about that, and he said it was very boring to play against Keane. He only calculates variations, which meant that Keane had swindled him. True, but let's face it, he had beaten Botvinnik, and to describe Keane in that way was, I believe, inaccurate, because Keane is a great strategical player. So anyway, then my turn comes against Botvinnik, and I'm in for the chop, but somehow the opening goes quite well for me.
Well, let's start by that. Yeah. So obviously you had the black pieces, and as I say, playing former world champion Mikhail Botvinnik, and he started 1 pawn to c4.
Yeah.
And what your thought process was, maybe? No, let's be serious.
This is 67, and I just bashed my pawn into e5.
So for those people who don't know you did play in a very classical manner. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but really quite homemade. So therefore I'm playing these openings, but it would be potluck whether I ever got a good position out of them.
And I showed this to, Simon knows this game already, but I showed him the other day, and he was looking through it, we played through it. Simon Williams, obviously, just for those who don't know, and he went, wow, Basman got a really good opening.
Yeah, and that again, because in a way I'd made it up as I went along. and I accidentally stumbled into a bad variation for Botvinnik. But even so, whether it was bad, we will, because this variation has been played quite a lot since. But this was one of the early games, and I think my way of playing it was a little different. Because anyway, I didn't read the books particularly, because as I say, they were too boring.
So just before we get into it, good afternoon to Mr. Hardcastle, Jabaz, Blazer, Nimzo Blitz, Mr. Perryman, thank you for joining us. And we're joining, just to remind you, this is a game of Botvinnik versus Mr. Michael Basman, and you had the black piece went c4, e5, and he went knight c3. Mm-hmm. And we're just
banging out, and now he went g3, didn't he?
That's correct.
Now so I'm developing that. That was a variation. Yeah, I had a really fantastic game in Armenia, which unfortunately you probably haven't got this game in your archives, against Demechanian.
I don't know if I have, and I could of course check.
Well, maybe next time.
Maybe we'll bring you back. Maybe if this is well received, we will bring you back, or if you're welcome, if you're happy to come back.
Yes, yeah, quite possibly to show you the game against Demechanian.
You can show us anything you like, obviously. Anything would be our pleasure.
So, because he played a similar variation.
So should we keep going? Because obviously we could. I mean, obviously, by the way, just to let everyone know, we're not going to be using any computers ever. Should anyone out there wish to look at this fantastic game and dissect it with a computer, then obviously I'm sure you've got the tools to do that. We're here just to hear what Mike's thoughts about the game were. And you made a fairly committal decision here.
Yeah, I guess he was going to sometime come into d5 with his knight, so I got rid of that knight. And I think that can be quite logical, because if you've got a white squared bishop and your pawn chain is on black squares, then it just makes sense. But then I seem to have deviated again, yeah, and played e4, which probably hasn't got any positional...
Well, I think Simon really liked this move, by the way.
It seems obviously white's not going to take, because then he's just going to have rotten double pawns. But it kind of disrupts things.
This didn't happen, but you're just saying.
Didn't happen, yeah. But I think probably it wasn't played because it's maybe too committal in the centre, but it seemed to work out quite well.
And obviously we've also got...
Going to play.
Well, let's go back. Let's not deviate too much. So after you played e4, because otherwise, of course, like in any chess game, especially a fantastic one like this, we could be here for literally hours, couldn't we, discussing all the various possibilities. So after you went e4, obviously as you said, white can't take, so white played knight d4.
We took, yeah. And did we not take on dolly 4 now? Yeah. And now I play this provocative move, d5. And white goes, I think, bishop g5? Or
he went bishop e3 in this position.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about bishop g5, and I'm thinking, shall I play h6, and maybe... Am I going to get his pawn on d4? Yeah, let's look at this.
Because I think this is a comment that Keane made about this game, wasn't it? I read somewhere that Keane was saying that there's a reason why Botvinnik didn't want to play bishop g5 against you and chose what looks like slightly more passive square e3. But let's look at this.
Yeah, we're not sure why he did that. But anyway, h6 I play, he takes, I take with the queen. And then if he takes on d5 with the bishop, I presume I take on d4 with the queen. It should be okay, yeah.
Well, it looks more than okay to me, I have to say. But then that's to my somewhat less trained eye.
Now it was a few years ago, this game, but there was something I was worried about, but I can't actually remember what it was. Okay.
But so in the game, for reasons best known to himself, and as I say, if we just go back, the computer takes a moment to catch up. He played the very eminently sensible, but maybe slightly less aggressive bishop to e3.
Yes, and then this position was okay because I'm kind of blockading his whole centre, and he's kind of running aground here. What did I do? Bishop e6.
Yeah, rook c1.
And
just keep moving it through. He went h6 first.
Yeah.
h3, c6.
So now we've got into a position where nothing's happening for Botvinnik. Look at my d5 square. And it's not easy for him to think of he's got the two bishops.
Do you remember how you were feeling before this game, during this game, in terms of were you gaining any optimism at this point, or were you still just sort of playing?
Well, I wasn't a very confident player, so I was So in the opening, you know, it was kind of what the hell? Let's play something, yeah. And actually, it seemed to have worked out well, and therefore, as the game went on, it was up to me to do something, because.
So let's we move through a few moves.
Yes. So now, yeah, and now I think I bring my knight back to G8.
Oh, Simon loved this move.
Yeah, because I think I've got to bring the pawns up and attack the king side here, and get the knight to E7.
So are you already thinking about this, bringing the game to the world champion Botvinnik?
Probably, I've got to play F5 and knight E7 and G5. Yes, so that's the only way to progress, because I've stabilised it in the centre, and yeah, this is the only thing, because for Botvinnik, he hasn't, you know. Botvinnik, it was an amazing, because he had all this resilience. You know, he's playing a beginner, and he's got a lost position, but he's still.
I don't think you just learned how to play chess that morning, had you? Let's be fair.
Yeah, but let's face it. What was my ELO? Maybe 2400, and he's 26, 27.
Still very impressive.
World champion,
anyway,
isn't he? So he's having to take this humiliation, that he's getting nothing against his opponent, and nonetheless he fights for 10 hours.
So forgive me. The game went on for.
The game went on for 10 hours.
10 hours.
Yes, 10 hours. Not solid, because we adjourned once. I think we adjourned twice. I think there was a third adjournment. Yeah, so altogether it could have been a 10-hour game, because we had slow time limits there. But Botvinnik, even though he's, how old is he? Heading towards 60. He still had this willpower that he could hold the game, and he managed to survive this position.
Well, if we go on, if we move on, then we'll see. And you choose your words.
Did he play G5? Yeah,
he played G4.
Oh, very brave of him.
And you went knight E7 and
Right.
bishop F4.
Right. Look here. Yeah.
I think now this is probably where it's an important moment in the game, because you've made a very committal decision.
Yeah.
And what? So and shall I put it on the board?
I played G5.
You played G5.
Yes, and yes, he's got the D6 square for his bishop, but I don't think he's going to get through anywhere on this. His other bishop is blocked out by my pawns. So though he has the two bishops, they haven't got the range that they want. So my knight is more dangerous.
Okay, so see, after he went bishop to E5.
Yeah, did I go F5?
F5, indeed. You went.
Yeah.
You're not worried about the outpost of the bishop on E5?
Not really. Where's the backup? He's not. I don't think he dares play F4. He's going to get murdered on the king side first. Yeah.
So the game continued.
Yeah, how he took
If I may?
that. Did I took with the bishop?
Yep.
Yeah. And now I guess knight G6. Yeah, it's getting a bit worse for Botvinnik.
It's starting to look really, you've done if we consider the position to maybe, we go back sort of like 8 moves, maybe just to show the contrast, and you look at the progress you've made on the king side.
Yes, and as you can say, him having the double rooks down the E file,
Forgive me.
It's starting to look quite good for him.
Sorry, Mike. So back to there, rook C to E1, thank you, sorry.
Yeah, but I think I was still pretty confident here, because I couldn't see his rooks breaking through, because you have a knight on G6, my bishop. All the entry points are defended on the E file, but look at his king starting to crumble under the attack. So we carried on.
Rook E6, and he went bishop G3, presumably trying to relieve the pressure with some rook exchanges.
Yes, I guess I have. No, we took a couple of rooks. Did he?
Not just yet, but very very shortly.
Yeah, so he went bishop there. I went queen. Oh, right, very nasty. I'm threatening his his D pawn. So what did I take? Did I take with the rook?
You took the bishop.
Took with the bishop.
And then he obviously went. Well, I say obviously, but he went back bishop to E5 to cover the D4 pawn.
I thought if I took, did I go to F7?
Yep, you did indeed. And then he went bishop G3, queen F5, and it's starting. I don't know. It's starting to look alright for you, I guess.
It is.
Well, not that it's not been looking alright for you for a number of moves, but it's starting to look, actually, to my eye, it's starting to look. You've got some threats. It's starting to look pretty positive.
Yes, and it's quite worrying for Botvinnik. What move number are we on?
We're on move 29. So this is, you just played 29 Queen F5.
And there's going to be an adjournment at move 40. And
So
Botvinnik is getting into time trouble here as well. So yeah, I don't want the rooks to be exchanged. I want to attack.
And you switch back to
Yeah.
attacking. No, maybe not attacking D4. I guess your E6 bishops under a bit of pressure. But now you are attacking D4. I guess.
Yes. Now, if he plays bishop E5, I'll just pick up the pawn on.
Yep. Let's just look at that. So now, obviously, if he now defends the way he's been defending
I
this.
just take on F2.
Queen takes F2, and you're not winning a pawn and breaking through to his 7th rank, obviously, which is pretty impressive.
So he's.
So back here, he had to go switch his queen away from the action, I guess.
Yes. Now look, I suppose he's threatening the pawn at B7. What did I play? Bishop C8.
No fear, Mike. No fear.
Oh, I did. Oh, I was an aggressive player then.
Well,
yeah, I guess no. He.
Apparently, I mean, I must have a sneaky look through his game. It's a good move, very strong move.
It is a strong move. Yes, you're right. Yeah, would I play it today? Who knows? G5.
What matters is that you didn't really, and it is being pointed out, in fairness, by Plukar in the chat that B7 might not be hanging because obviously you might have some sort of discovered attacks against the queen, maybe, or you might have some ideas with that. However, so G4 again is entirely understandable. Thank you for that comment.
Putting the boot in, and now the H pawn is going to come down the board as well, and add to his torment. So he had to take it, didn't
Indeed, he took it, and obviously recaptured.
Yeah, now H5, H4, and then his F2 pawn is going to look quite weak.
So exactly.
Yeah, look at this.
Look at this position.
Good, does it? It does not look
So
good.
I mean, I don't know if you can remember, it was some time ago, but you must have had you must have been aware that when you got a good position, you're 2400 at the time in International Master. You must have, even if you said, quite humbly, quite modestly, you weren't a confident player. I'm guessing you must have felt somewhat good about this situation.
Oh yeah, this position looked good to me, but that's all the same. How are you going to actually break through? So, unless you've got a concrete way of winning, then...
Well, Plukar wants you to play H3 and Knight H4 if you get the chance.
Did I?
Well, no, that's what he wants you to play. That's what his... I think you had a different direction, but that was one of his ideas.
That's what Botvinnik was worried about.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because
so congratulations, Mr. Plukar.
I think he saw that coming, and therefore he went bishop there. Now you think I should have played H3?
Well, no, I don't know. Of course, it's not. Of course, the rooks and the bishop. So I think it was just an idea by Plukar. If you could have got that in play, of course, it would require some preparation, of course. Well, you went Queen F5, so presumably you would directly iron up the idea of H3.
Yes. And I think was it not adjourned at this moment?
Well, no, we've got a couple more moves. It was adjourned on move 40. He went bishop F1,
right,
and then you went.
Bishop.
And maybe I don't know. As I say, could you have gone H3 here? I wonder. I don't know if it's the move you played seems very reasonable to me. It seems eminently sensible.
It looks like Botvinnik has some problem.
It looks like it's got to say. It looks like he's going to do well. Maybe he was quite fortunate. And it's unfair to say. Maybe he was fortunate as the German because you've got some serious problems to solve as white over the board here, and black can keep sort of needling you, and if you make a mistake, of course. Yeah. Whereas if you go to a German, fortunately, I'd say we don't have the Germans nowadays, which I think's, especially with computers, I think that really changes everything, doesn't it? Everyone just goes away and sticks the game on a computer and then finds effectively the answer, don't they?
I mean, this position looks so bad; it's almost hard to find any defensive.
Well, I think that might be the only way.
Oh, he went back to H2. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes, it's yeah.
And you were Bishop D1.
Ah, right. So maybe here. Yeah. So here. That's the truth. This is one of the difficult things. You've got this position, but how do you? You've still got
to find the killer blow, haven't you? And these guys are incredibly. I mean, I'm talking about this from listening to other people. You've got to. They don't just lie down. These guys, do they? You've got to absolutely. No. You've got to beat them. You've got to beat them. In no uncertain terms. They're not going to give it to you.
So it does look like.
So this might be the interesting move. And if it was adjourned here.
Yeah. No. At this moment,
because his next move was superb, I have to say.
I think he's. I know what he said. Yes, it was going to be adjourned, but Botvinnik said, "No, I can play." He wanted to leave the sealed move to me. Yeah.
But so he played one more move.
I think he made me seal. He said, "I can play." I don't. He wanted to seal the move.
But I certainly know that from looking at this, what he played next was incredibly resourceful, and it just goes to show, from a practical point of view. Can I show what he played?
Yeah.
He played F4.
Yes, that's what he did. Because we're running out of time, and he didn't want to seal. He wanted to play this move to put me on the spot, so that I would have to make some quick
that makes a lot
decision.
of sense.
Yeah, and so he said, "I can play," and so he played, and then we sealed.
Okay.
So
that was very clever by him, I have to say. That was very astute of his. He's under pressure, and yet he's still got the wherewithal to, use a bit of game theory, a little bit of gamesmanship, shall I say? Yeah, of course. So gamesmanship's much more accurate word. Thank you, Mike.
Yes. So he's using everything he can to get out of this position. This position is the pits. And he's got to find a way out. And here he showed, he started to show his fighting spirit.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, as I say, they don't make it easy for you, do they?
No. So anyway, I think I took the pawn, and then he was able to...
He starts to wriggle, yeah? This is just a very... I don't think I would have ever seen this move F4, because it just looks like it loses a pawn. It's the one remaining pawn around your king. I mean, I know it's not defending the king right as we speak, as such, but it's doing a job. It's defending the G3 square, for example. The king could maybe get a bit of shelter on G1. I just don't. I mean, this is just, it shows the quality of the guy you were playing.
Yeah.
That he's finding a move like F4. It looks like it clearly just loses a pawn, and yet it has the benefit of being able to get some exchanges, get some exchanges get pieces off the board.
It's sacrificing a pawn. And he's reckoning if he can get into an endgame, he's got chances against the young player. Yeah,
he's going to use
his endgame
nous,
skill should be. But of course, this endgame is not wonderful for him. Look at this; he's got all those shattered pawns. He's got useless bishops, but and he's a pawn down.
Now, if I could just interrupt you, if I may, just to ask a question from the chat, because we talked about Botvinnik's gamesmanship. Was he being clever there? Could you have insisted he sealed, or did he just sort of rush it in to the point at which it?
I don't know, because I'm a young player.
Yeah.
So also I'm not going to know the rules.
Yeah, and also, and even if you did, you might be. You might be not wanting to be. You might not want to be rude to a man of Botvinnik's stature.
Again, if he wanted to seal, probably it wasn't a big deal for me. These are kind of small calculations that Botvinnik would make. For me, it's water under the bridge.
Sure.
Who seals? But for him, everything would have been done scientifically.
So he was very calculating his decision.
Yeah.
You don't know, you don't know or can't recollect whether you could have been able to insist on him sealing. But I guess when he's made the move, it's quite hard to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the people, the organisers would know the rules, but the organisers are not chess players.
So yeah, okay. So that was just the reason I asked you that was because there's a question in the chat, Mike. That's why it didn't come from me, but just interesting to note. Interesting to note that one. So now, of course, the way he's trying to defend is using this move, Queen F2.
Yeah, so he's hoping to swap the queens, which I think
you've won a pawn.
Yes, I think I have to let. Well, I could.
Well, I mean, he's planning. I guess he's got the option going Bishop takes F4
if
anyway,
I
hasn't
play
he?
Queen G4, presumably he would play Bishop H3, and am I right? And then I would say I can't take with the knight because my rook is hanging.
Yeah. Okay. So there's now got a pin on your rook on F7. So obviously, this would be a no clearly.
And well, I suppose I could. Could I go Queen G4? But again,
sorry, in which position? Forgive me.
Let's just go back, not play. Queen G5 doesn't really unpin the knight, does it?
No, indeed. But I think you've got the same. You've got the same issue, haven't you? And also, of course, you couldn't take now because obviously rook takes would be would be potentially quite damaging for white, I suppose.
Well, I suppose I might be able to play something like rook f5 to come up, but I'm not sure if that's, well, if that's going to do me. Anyway, I think we went into the end game. Yeah.
Okay, so absolutely. As I say, we could be here for an extraordinary amount of time for such a fascinating game.
So we go into the end game. Yeah.
But you are a fairly clean pawn up. It does have two bishops, I guess.
But look at his other pawns, and I've still got this positional advantage.
So you're basically saying that not only your pawn up, you're actually more concerned about the mopping up some of the other pawns that white has.
Black's pieces are more active, and actually the white bishop on is still a bad one, the one on d6. And I'm threatening anyway rook f2 check, aren't I, to pick up the pawn on a2. So
he's still got some problems to solve here, hasn't he?
Oh, massive. Yeah.
He continued king g1.
Yes, so it's obviously, so I go back to g4. Now.
And now comes the king, I guess.
Yes. So we're just sort of advancing down the board. Look here. He's playing a5, yeah.
Fixing his weakness on a5, which you can potentially round up later.
But his pawns, these pawns are totally static, aren't they? I mean, what? That's the worst nightmare for the bishops.
Of course, because they don't. Yeah, they've got no. There's nowhere. Sort of, this bishop would dearly love to find some sort of way in here, wouldn't it? But of course, it's just a pipe dream at the moment, isn't it, for that to happen?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Duff Deep Blue. Another one of your fans in the chat. So he's got a number of your books.
Ah.
These aren't real names, by the way. As I say, they're non-names, Mike. So.
Right. Okay, I'm sure I know him.
But good afternoon. Very welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, just to let you know, we're looking at the game Botvinnik Basman,
which has actually never been analysed before anywhere.
That's not true, though, is
No,
it?
this is the first time. They will usually do other stuff, you know, like,
oh, really?
Like that lunatic game against Andersson or my more recent stuff. But this game has never, well, it's appeared in chess magazines.
Well, so we're delighted that you can talk us through it.
So this is the first time I've actually discussed this game.
I had no idea about that, would you believe?
Yeah, so you've got a first there.
I've got a scoop, ladies and gentlemen.
And
you know where to come to get the good information.
We'll come to the moment at about 10:30 at night.
Yes, indeed.
So I have to make a decision.
Oh, I see. So, well, I thought you meant today, but no, you meant back in when you played this game.
Yeah, because it was adjourned, and then we'd have come back maybe a couple of hours later. So let's say it's adjourned at maybe you start at 2 o'clock, and maybe you've got a 5-hour session for 40 moves in 2.5 hours each. So it's 2 till 7. No, would it be 2 to 7? Yeah, and maybe you come back at 9. Yeah. To complete the game, another couple of hours you're playing, yeah. So we come back possibly at 9 o'clock,
right,
at night. I don't think we come back the next morning, but we might have.
But it sounds like you came back a couple of times anyway, so you probably did come back at night and in the morning. By the sounds of it.
No, maybe. Well, let's say if we got a 2-hour session, are we going to play 20 moves in 2 hours, 9 till 11?
So it's probably adjourned at least a couple of times.
Yeah, it was adjourned a couple of times. So here, what happens after?
He went rook e3.
Okay, because he doesn't want my pawn coming to h3, then my knight would come to h4.
So you have got this, like, go back, congratulations to chat. Your thought process here is to go, pawn to h3, obviously if you had the opportunity.
Yeah. And then the knight coming in to h4, and then he's going to do all manner of damage coming into f3 or f5.
You could even do those. From the knight from f3. You could even take, and once those pawns start falling, I guess white's very on the verge of losing.
Yes. So Botvinnik can't allow that. So how did I get my knight through?
So
maybe I played knight I played king there. Maybe I just played knight f4. Yeah. Or did I play h3?
No, you went king h5 first. Maybe to avoid some checks, rook g8, and then you went h3.
Okay, well this is still looking pretty cool, isn't it?
And you got knight h4 on the boards.
So my knight has come into h4. It's still not looking good for check, yeah. Now, how did he get out of this one? I think I go to f5 now.
Indeed.
So the knight's coming into f3, check, and surely d4's coming.
Oh, that could be the issue about.
Now, but he's threatening my thingy, isn't he?
Well, I think by thingy you might mean the bishop on g4.
But then,
I
of
guess.
course, I played a move which kind of a bit surprised him.
Would you like me to show what you did in this position? You played knight to d2.
Yeah, I think this was a move he'd overlooked. This was because my knight's going to get in among his queenside pawns. Yeah, and it looks like I'm trading. He has made a success here. He's managed to get off my h3 pawn, but at the expense of my knight running riot on the queen side. Yeah.
So in the game, he did get rid of that pawn, I guess, without hesitation in inverted commas, because it is a perpetual thorn in his side.
Yeah.
And now momentarily material is equal, but then, as you were pointing out, knight b3.
And this. Yeah.
And I believe after the next move, this is where, from reading up on the literally one-line comments which I've been able to discover, this was maybe a key moment in the game.
Yes, because at this point, what did he play?
He just went king g3, by the way. Sorry.
Yes. So at this point, I'm tossing up, and it's quite late, maybe 10:30. Which of these pawns should I take? And maybe I go for the a5 pawn because it's the past one, but I think probably taking the pawn on d4 would have been more centralized.
I think the point being, and this is only because I've done a bit of research on this, I can fully understand it. You know, from my position, I can understand why he went knight takes a5. Because it scoots up an advanced pawn of his. The other pawns are still doubled and backwards. And you've now got a passed a pawn, which maybe can come into effect, especially with this bishop being so far away from the ability to stop this pawn. So apparently, and as I say, this is not my personal opinion, but apparently knight takes d4, keeping the knight centralized would have been
a
better shot. Yeah. But I can fully understand. I certainly can fully understand why he played knight takes a5.
Yes, so knight takes a5 was probably the wrong decision.
Because I think it just gives him he's just in time.
He gets his king.
He's just in time to do this.
Yes.
And now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can get to a5, but can the pawn go further? The rook seems to be able to stop.
And I think that was the issue.
But still, I mean, you'd have thought I could get my rook across.
Well, let's see what happened. You went rook h7.
Yeah. Rook checks. Now what happened? Rook there, king there. Yeah. Now what does he do? So he's playing that move. I could play b5 here now, but no, he plays rook b7.
So the problem is rook b7. So you went
check. Yeah. Now it's I suppose I can take on d4 here, but then.
But he's now getting some serious counterplay against your queenside pawns, isn't he? I mean, I think that's it's very tricky, isn't it? Again, you've got to, even though he's been under pressure, he's just still fighting, isn't he? He's absolutely just not letting you have anything.
Right back in the game. So maybe, taking on d4, the knight would have been more active. Yeah?
I think so. Well, Pluquar's saying exactly what happened here, knight a5. But he found a very, very clever defence, didn't he?
What, at this position?
Well, in general, after you went b5, obviously, en passant not being possible because of the pawn needing to hold on to the bishop on d6. But now he spots that your king is now struggling to get out of checks. And this is exactly what happened. This is the way the game finished. Rook e3, king f5, rook f3.
In fact, at this point, I suddenly got the feeling that I was losing.
You could be, if you allow his king to, if you switch off and allow his rook to come to g7, maybe his king to e6, you could be getting checkmated almost, couldn't you?
And that's what I was thinking.
Or very close to
that. Now I'm losing this game. Now while I'm sort of, going through this, trauma after 10 hours of being ahead, Botvinnik offers me a draw. Now, was it because it was a draw, or was he being nice? I don't know.
Well, I think if we just show how the game finished.
So it ends up.
The game
ends
finished.
up with a draw because he offers a draw.
Yeah. But has he not got perpetual here? Or not quite?
This is where it was a draw?
Yeah, this is where it was a draw anyway. But I think there's maybe has he got.
I was seriously worried that he had a mating attack here.
And Murray Hatman's, well, that's exactly, but Murray Hatman's just beautifully pointed out, if Botvinnik offered a draw, it's because it was a draw.
I don't know. Maybe
meaning that he wasn't obviously going to be checkmating you, I guess, by the point of that.
Maybe he was just being a gentleman.
Yeah, indeed.
Well,
apparently.
He had a soft, because once he comes home to...
Well, someone's beaten you to the punch in there saying that's not going to be the case. Thank you very much, H2G2.
Well,
Arcade English.
He gets back to Moscow, and of course, as Keenan Hartston said, the closer he got to Moscow, the more insulting he was about the British players. Yeah, but except for me, and then he sort of said, "Oh, you went to town on me." Basman's the only British player who strives to create original positions. He must become British champion soon. Yeah, all this stuff was suppressed, by the British press, the establishment.
Is that because you've always been considered to be something of a maverick?
I'm afraid so, and it was the same happened when I had that argument with the tax office. Of course, the whole of the establishment gangs up against this outsider. Yeah, so things are the same. So Botvinnik's words were not well appreciated by the British elite. Obviously, the guy was totally ignorant, in their opinion, or he was getting on and was senile. So maybe because he was that sort of player. He was a strange player, part of the establishment, but he really liked players like Ragozin and Simogen, who were not great players but had ideas.
And I believe it's Simargin who he compared you to. Is that correct?
Yes, and he said that Simargin, Basman plays like Simargin. Which means he can get these wonderful positions and then mess them up by not playing so well. Yeah, so he had a soft spot for that sort of player. And I think actually when you look at Botvinnik's openings as well, he was a real outsider. He was a guy who was playing the Dutch defence, which was Dutch defence had a terrible reputation. But he didn't mind. He used to play these really gritty openings, like the Vinava French. There was the Botvinnik anti-Moran system. You might have heard of it.
I have heard of
that crazy sort of thing where you... Do you want to have a look at the Botvinnik anti-Moran?
Well,
we probably haven't got time.
I don't know if we've got... Well, maybe we'll have to do that next time. But just before we wrap it up, we will be wrapping up now. Appreciate you're a busy man. There is something I do have to show you, and it's something that you touched upon during this, is that, well, thank you, by the way, before I move on, thank you very much for talking us through that game, and it was certainly very interesting for me too, because I didn't think about the adjournments that would have happened so many times. But you did mention another game which has been fairly well linked to you, part of the reason being that you were one of the sides playing it, and part of the reason was it was your eventual victory against Ulf Andersson, a fantastic Swedish Grandmaster.
Yeah.
And let me show you this position, which was reached. You had, forgive me, there's a reason why I've got it this way round, just to show you the contrast. And this was a position you had against Ulf Andersson. I think this was at Hastings as well, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you had the black pieces, and this is your position after 12 moves. And let's look at the position after 24 moves. So this is the position after whites.
Wait a minute.
Oh, you need me to bring it. You need me to bring it up.
Wait a minute.
You need to look over to the right on this occasion. Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologise. Do you want? Okay. So just to show everyone, this is your position after white's 12th move, and this is the position after white's 24th move.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just like to show the contrast. If anyone in the chat could tell me what black's moved in the intervening 12 moves, just go back. That's 12 moves, 24 moves. 12 moves, 24 moves. So
the position hasn't changed, has it?
The position hasn't changed. And I don't know if you've seen this before, Mike. I'll bring this up on my...
That's true, but black cannot improve his position.
Black cannot... Oops, sorry.
His position can only get worse.
And there was a little... I don't know if you've ever been aware of the famous Reykjavik quiz that they have. And they had this. And I don't know if you read this. This was one of the questions one year at the
Yeah, I think because black cannot improve his position, I just kind of... Because actually in chess, chess is a bit unfair, which is why women don't like
Now,
playing.
I don't know if you've...
You should be able to pass. If you haven't got a move...
You should be able to pass, yes, instead of moving something.
You should be able to pass. Whereas you can't. In chess, you have something called zugzwang. Now, women in there, regularly will pass if they don't want to do anything. They just don't do anything.
Okay.
So that's why, chess is alien to them, yeah? I don't have to make a move. Now here, so I'm just playing in my feminist way. And in fact, that's what the Grob is. It is a feminist opening.
Now, what I was, before you continue down that route, not that I'm going to censor you, I should point out that this did actually appear at the Reykjavik quiz a few years ago. Yeah. And thank you very much to my friend Zibbit, who you can check out his YouTube channel as an Icelandic player, for pointing me in this direction. And do you know who got, so you see the question there, I'm not going to ask you how you feel about the Joker, because it's always meant in good humour, of course, this Reykjavik quiz. Yeah. But do you have any idea who knew the answer? Let me show you who knew the answer. And let me show you him celebrating. He knew this position and he got it right. And this is who got it right.
Oh my Magnus! He was the only one who got it right.
Magnus was, I think, one of the very few people to get it right. And he's situated, he's celebrating his victory from that exact year, by the way, after naming that you were the Joker.
No. Was that after he was named world champion or after he got the result of this competition?
No, that was him. That was him alongside. That he had a team. He's alongside Hammer, Tom Ludwig. Sorry, I couldn't remember his name there for a minute. Yeah. And of course, they called themselves MC Hammer.
Oh, right,
so that was it. So that is actual picture, and you can see John Ludwig Hammer next to him there. That was the team of two, and they won it. They won it with 19.5 out of 20.
Wow,
including. Knowing Magnus was very proud, as you can see, because he knew the answer to this question.
Right, so maybe I've trained Magnus.
So Magnus does very well at these quizzes, and he must be pretty proud. Now, this was 15 years before he was born, and he happened to know that this was your game against Ulf Andersson.
He knew a lot, yes. So maybe he will join my campaign.
Maybe he will.
To allow you to pass. But looking at this position, you see the position?
Sorry, we're going back to the Botvinnik position.
Just the final position.
Sorry, you want to go back? Sorry, I just need to give me a minute to click around. It's now back up on screen.
Looking at that position. Yeah, okay. Well, before he plays rook b8 check, yeah? His rook's on b7, isn't it? No. Yeah. So I took on d3.
That's correct.
Now I've done that. Rook takes d3.
Yep.
Okay, can he not play king e6 here?
Can he play king e6 with the obvious threat of rook b8?
So maybe I play knight takes d4 check. Okay, and he could take and then play king. Well, it's got to. But could he not play now king? Or he could play possibly king to d6.
But then, of course, you've got at least. Well, I was going to say got at least a draw there, but that's not true because, of course, the c6 pawn.
I'm not sure if I got a draw here. He could play. Yeah, he could play. So what? I could play knight b5 check. He could play king takes c6.
No, maybe can you go king c8 here?
King c8.
Because obviously the king being on d6 is no longer. It's blocking the bishop from covering b8 square. I'm not.
Okay.
I mean,
can he? So I see. Yeah. Okay. So I play king to c8. He can play rook a7 here.
Maybe I'll just keep. Well, maybe I was just thinking I might keep running. I don't think I'm. Still maybe not trying to win as black because it's very dangerous, isn't it?
It's not. I guess he could take on a5. Well, I suppose then. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it's still.
It's still complicated. There's not many pieces on the board. It's still incredibly complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. Black is under the cosh, isn't he? Having had this winning position, suddenly Black's.
Okay, we've got a suggestion.
Kind of faced with.
We've got a suggestion in this position here that maybe knight f5, with the idea of king c6, knight e7, coming back to c8. Oops.
So, king.
Sorry, whoops. I apologise.
King
b5,
that. Yeah.
So king b5 here.
Yeah, king b5, and then the pawn coming. Well, yes, I suppose. pawns coming to c6.
Well, the Blue Cross saying oh king b5, so that looks like a dangerous move. He was just suggesting it. He's not saying that he's analysed it in depth or anything like that. He's just wondering if
white's pawns coming to c6. He's threatening then with b8. Well, maybe Good point.
I'll tell you what. We'll have a good look at this. I mean, I might use the old silicon beast at some point just to find out the exact truth of this, without having to analyse it too much. Look, I think we're going to wrap it up there, Mike.
So was Basman busted?
Just before we do wrap it up, I understand that you've got a new book out with a friend of yours.
Yes, Gerard.
Do you want to tell us a little bit? I'll just show this. I'll put a couple of links in the chat just before we go, and if you want to check out Mike Basman's website, which I believe you've done most of these things.
Yeah. Oh yes.
And we'll just go back. So we'll just go back to a big live picture, Mike, so you can.
Yes. Now, if
for a little bit of, I can just hold it for you. You talk about it just so that people can see with the reflection. I'll cover my face. That's probably best.
So if you happen to be a millionaire, you should buy this book. It's only £30. Yeah.
And it's called "You Cannot Be Serious."
You Cannot Be Serious. It's kind of by one of my fans, because I have a lot of fans in other countries like Holland. And Gerard first met me at this Spiel tournament, and he started writing all my games down. He claims to have learnt positional chess from me, and he became a stronger player than me. He became a very strong master, and he was the Dutch Blitz champion as well. Better than Van der Wiel at the time.
Right, okay, well, he was very strong, wasn't he?
So, Gerard is a lost talent. Obviously he wasted too much time playing my openings, but he has gained immortality, because this is a great book. I can recommend it. What's interesting about it, for me, is the insight it gives you into chess on the continent. The little clans that they have, the different nations, and how they're all this kind of club together. And then suddenly this barbarian arrives from England, and starts playing ridiculous moves. And the horror, the shock, the disgust among the chess fraternity, which Gerard kind of laps up. He found it hilarious. So it's a great book. Gerard is also a fantastic analyst. He's, you can say, objective. And he's not always accurate. For example, he says, I'm past it and my games were better earlier on. I disagree there. Okay, so just to let people know what we've done, I've put in a link to your the website I believe you set up during the pandemic time. So, and that's got some fantastic resources on there. Please go and check that out. I've also put up a link to your YouTube channel, which you've started, so people can see you talking about some of your avant-garde thinking, shall we say. You're very much at the forefront of that. And finally, I've put up a link directly to that book. So if anyone's interested in supporting Mike and having a great read and looking through some fantastic games, then I highly recommend that. Thank you very much for everyone who joined us. Of course, most importantly, thank you, Mike. It's been very interesting, and maybe we'll get an opportunity for you to join us another day. It could be. Excellent. Well, look, I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much, and we shall catch everyone in the fullness of time. What about Muhammad Ali? What about Muhammad Ali? Is he coming on? Well, he was interviewed by the BBC, and he said, I love being here and I like your style, but your pay is so lousy, I won't be back for a while. That is absolutely true. So, by the way, the pay is very lousy, I have to say. Mike's absolutely right. So if you do want to support him, go and check out his YouTube page, subscribe to that, because it's always nice to get people watching your videos there. But more importantly, do go along to his website, and if you'd like a good read and you want to support Mike, buy his book. And there's many other resources, as I say, on his website. Something for everyone there. And hopefully we'll get him on again soon. Oh, we're looking for a sponsor for the UK Chess International. And very much so. So if anyone's interested in supporting chess and supporting the next generation of chess, bringing people on, that we've had the opportunities, that I've had the opportunities, then get in touch with Mike. You can get in touch with me or get in touch with Mike directly. There is a contact us option on Mike Basman's website. So if anyone is interested in supporting the new venture or the new ideas, then please get in touch. Great. Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. Everyone enjoy the rest of their day, and bye for now.